Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Tech Talk with Amit and Rinat. In today's talk, we are going to talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, and other forms of reality that's available in the market. So, virtual reality has been a very hot topic recently. Many of the heads-up displays from Facebook, the Oculus Quest, the Oculus Rift, then there are virtual reality glasses from Valve, the Steam Index, then the you have glasses from HTC, the HTC Vive, and there are many other forms of virtual reality. And people can play games on it. People can browse applications. People can use a web browser, etc. So it's a very hot topic. And the other thing is augmented reality. So using your smartphone, you can point your smartphone camera into the world near you, and you can see, say, a Pokemon character in your phone, which is not there in the real world, but it is visible on your phone, and that's how the game becomes popular. So today, in today's topic, we will explore all these things of what is VR, what is AR, what are the different applications, are there any limitations, what are the different products available in the market, etc. And Rinat here, he has experience of working in virtual reality as part of his work experience. So today we are going to explore more with him on this topic. So welcome to our show.
Thank you, Amit. Yes, absolutely. VR and AR is the hot topic today, but obviously it has picked up some traction in the recent days. But I've actually been using and working in VR and AR industry for some time now. I mean, for those of you who are following us, you would probably know that we both have a background of mechanical engineering. So when I finished my degree in engineering, my first job, my second job was in a company who specifically delivers immersive solutions, which are to do with virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, etc. And as an engineer, I would be building these solutions, which would be for enterprise customers for industry level VR solutions. And from those experiences, I've picked up a lot of knowledge and insights. And I've started about like 7-8 years ago. Although I've been a little bit out of touch since I'm now working in IT industry, but uh, while being in that VR and AR industry, designing and making engineering solutions which enables VR and AR, I've seen a lot, and it is about time that I get to talk about this topic, which I am actually very passionate about. It has a lot of potential, and hopefully the listeners and viewers will get a lot of value from this talk today.
Definitely, Renat. I think it's a hot topic, and for those who are watching this show or listening it on a podcast, you can also note that in this week CES 2021 is happening. It's a completely virtual event, and people who love gadgets, who love technologies, you can see on their channel that a lot of VR and AR products are being launched. So it's a hot topic, and we thought of, okay, let's explore it in a bit. So, Rinat, my first question is for the benefit of everyone, what is VR? What is AR?
Yes, absolutely. So, what I usually do always, whenever people ask me for a definition, I try to break down each of the words. So, VR and AR stands for virtual reality and augmented reality. So, let's break down each of the words. Reality, first of all. Reality is what do we mean when we say reality? Reality is, with all our five senses, what we experience in our life. So a little bit philosophical. Reality, what it is for me, might not be the same for you. I'm with my senses, I'm experiencing life in a way, but you probably experience from your perspective the same set of events in different ways. So reality is is different based on perspective, but it is what we all say. And say, if we all say that, okay, this is, this table in front of us exists, then we take it, we agree that it exists, and then we can take we could infer various things from it. And obviously, then there is the question of physics, and all have physical properties, etc. But when we talk about virtual reality, that all becomes a little bit hazy, a little bit questionable. So when we enter a virtual world, we see most of the times we experience reality through vision. What we see is what we call the reality around us. And virtual reality, we give our senses virtually created information, which creates a different reality from the physical reality that where we live. So virtual reality is digitally created world that you experience by giving your five senses, giving your five senses the information of this new reality. So you kind of you kind of dive into that reality and experience everything around you in that way. So that's reality, and that's virtual reality. Augmented reality is taking it a little bit further. So when you step into a virtual world, everything that you see or hear is virtual. It's digitally created. But then you are kind of at the same time missing out what is physically in front of you in real life. When you try to combine both of these together, then it becomes augmented reality. So your actual reality, the physical reality where you live in, if you augment that reality with virtual artifacts in your source of information with all of your senses, then it becomes augmented reality. Your actual reality augmented by virtual artifacts in your information stream. So that's augmented reality. Speaking of VR and AR, then nowadays we also talk about another two terms that comes about, which is mixed reality and then extended reality. So these are newer terms which are combination of VR and AR in many ways. So when you step into a virtual world, you experience it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can interact with it. So when the world changes based on your interaction, and you're not just a spectator, and everything that you do in that world is sort of that world also is taking into account your interactions and changing the behavior, changing the existence of the world based on it, then that becomes extended reality. That's what we say. So that's that's in a nutshell different kinds of digital realities.
Wow. I mean, virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, mixed reality. It's funny how many realities we do have. But I think that was a good explanation. I mean, we all do experience our senses, and as you rightly said, we experience it in different ways because not all of our senses are active, and we perceive it in the similar way. Some people who are disabled, they experience the world in a very different way compared to people who have all their five senses working. So it's interesting when you mentioned that, yes, everyone perceives reality a bit differently, and the way we perceive it is what who we become and how our experiences are. So virtual reality is something that is artificially created. Augmented reality is something that is enhancing our existing reality with some digital artifacts. Say when you're navigating on a street, so rather than seeing the empty road, you can actually see the direction on the road itself through your display. So maybe something like that. So that augments your reality. And then the last thing you mentioned about mixed reality is a combination of both, where you can actually interact. So let's explore it in a way, in more detail. So I mean, while we were talking about this, you mentioned that virtual reality has two different ways of people experiencing it. And one is the heads up display that everyone is familiar with. And you also talked about immersive displays. So, can you tell what the differences are between the two forms of experiencing virtual reality, and why there are two different forms, and if there are any applications?
This is actually a very important topic, and one thing to actually very it's a good opportunity to clarify to all our viewers and listeners to expand the horizon of VR and AR as well, because most of the time whenever we in recent days talk about VR, we immediately think about various VR or AR solutions like
Yes.
Google Cardboard or various head-mounted display products. So this is only one one of one of a spectrum of various virtual reality solutions. So HMD in short, or head-mounted display, are the ones that we mainly know about in mainstream media and various products that we can buy. They're all head mounted and a display, so we that gives us a virtual vision. So and also the audio input as well. So video and audio input from this head mounted display gives us a the opportunity to step into a virtual world. However, with the current technological advancement, as far as we've come, it's still not the best. I mean, even nowadays, a lot of people doesn't even like to wear glasses.
This actually happened with Google Glass, and Google Glass came out with this whole concept of people wearing glasses, and you could see some content on the glasses while you're talking to a person, and it failed miserably. Of course, they then went on to providing it to business customers, not for normal consumers. But yeah, you are right. I don't want to wear a glass every time I want to experience a different form of reality.
Yes, absolutely. And not only is it, I mean, even if for your eye prescription, a lot of people doesn't even like wearing the regular prescription glasses. I mean, I don't like wearing prescription. I'm wearing contacts right now. And to imagine a lot heavier display, which requires battery, which requires power, and also your head movement is kind of difficult. So if you do want to experience a virtual world, you wanna run inside it, you wanna fly, and you wanna do everything with it, and you wanna move your head as if you're fully immersed in that world. However, if you're having to carry this display, this whole equipment, which is heavy and also which has latency based on how you move your head, because in the virtual world, if you move your head, it will sense how much how many degrees you moved, and then it will change the display in a way so you will experience that movement in the virtual world. However, in virtual reality, in head-mounted displays, there is less processing power because they try to make it as light as possible, so it can't be too heavy. But that also means the latency becomes an issue. So if you move your head in real world, you you see from one angle to another angle straight away. But in digital world, it takes a bit of time, a few milliseconds slower. But that makes a big difference in terms of experiencing that virtual world. And you in that way, you can't just forget about the real world, and you can't be fully immersed in the virtual world because you're always experiencing some latency or lag, and some people actually feel sick as well after being in virtual world for some time because of the latency, because your brain is constantly trying to match up this lag, and after using it for some time, you feel sick as well because of the discrepancy between the real world and virtual world. So these are some of the limitation of HMD or head-mounted displays. So what's the solution? Enter immersive solutions which are not actually mounted to yourself. You are you are wearing some sort of tracking device, so the whole solution knows your interaction, but you're not having to wear a display, but you have a full rounded spherical display around you. So if you create a dome, a
Yeah.
spherical display, and then make the whole inner surface of the dome screen, and then that screen changes based on how you move your head and how you move, then that would be a fully immersed solution where you would think you're completely in a different world. And that can be achieved, and that is one of the things I used to design when I used to work as a mechanical engineer. I used to design these domes, and then these domes would be you know made into screens by industrial quality projectors with 4K resolution. So, you would use like 8 to 10 really high quality projectors, which will make the whole everything that you see around you and in your perspective vision, everything is screen. So everything is displaying a digital world. So you completely get immersed into this world, and you're not even wearing a head-mounted display. So there is no limitation of carrying around heavy equipment. So that is much more realistic, and also by default much more expensive. So it is usually available on in industrial settings. But yeah, there are that kind of solutions are as well. um, and then you can go a level further. If inside the center of the dome, if you are sitting in a chair, or in a jig which will move, simulating the experience of whatever you're seeing in that digital display. Say, for example, if you're seeing that you're in a rocket and you're moving through space, and then the chair that you're sitting on, if it vibrates and it lifts up, goes down to you know aligned with everything that you see, then your experience become a lot more realistic. So this is the other part. I was talking about your senses are how you experience reality, and with head-mounted display, you're only you know input information stream is through your vision and your hearing. You don't experience the tactile differences. So if you are sitting in a chair which is moving, simulating your experience, maybe sitting on a roller coaster and the chair is moving and vibrating, giving you that experience. So that's the tactile experience. So that's another information source. And then another thing, for very sophisticated realistic experience, say for example, if you're in a virtual reality environment where you're sort of exploring the caves, or and then we would engineer solutions where you would have the smell of going into a cave, or if you are experiencing the beachfront, you would have the seaside smell, and these smells are also, you can actually buy them as well. And that becomes even more realistic. So when all five of your senses are stimulated, and given all of this sensory information, then you can't help but fully be immersed and think that you are actually there. And that is an amazing experience. I have experienced these, and I have also built, designed these things. So I can say that if any of the viewers or listeners have the opportunity to experience something like this, it definitely is worth taking on that journey.
I mean, I'm excited just listening about it. So I can, I can, I can't even imagine how exciting would it be to experience it actually in real life. But um, interesting that there are head-mounted displays and there are domes. And I have experienced actually these kind of not exactly domes, but when you go to these amusement parks, say Disney World, Disneyland, and there you actually sit inside like a box, and there are some seats, and there is a display, and there they take you down a roller coaster, as you mentioned, or maybe in a plane, and then you just do some maneuvers, and the chair is moving, and you're just strapped to your seat, and they try to create that experience virtually. And
Yes.
you are just seated in one single position, but they try to create this immersiveness virtually, and it's quite fascinating. And while talking about this, I think even aircraft simulators, so they also work on the same concept, right? You sit in a pod, and they have these mechanical arms, and you try to move the display, and it'll take off, land, and when you press brakes, it'll react to it. So it's quite interesting. But I think there might be differences in their applications, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, because from what I see, virtual reality with a head-mounted display has the benefit of being portable, being small.
Yes.
I can use it in my house. I can use it when I'm traveling. I can carry it with me because it can fit me in my suitcase. But with a immersive display, because of the nature of it being immersive, it needs a much bigger infrastructure. So it means it's bound to a location, and I cannot just carry it. So can you just explain, like, what are the different applications, and why did these two different forms of VR actually emerged? Or not different forms of VR, but different forms of experiencing VR.
Yes, very much so. And this is actually an important thing, a set of important information to know about as well. I mean, both of these solutions, they have their limitations and their benefits. As you said, head-mounted displays, they're portable, they're, much more affordable as well for our, for regular public to get into VR. Um, and then there is the bigger infrastructure, dome or other immersive solutions. So when we talk about applications, this is actually this is something is very interesting, I find, because a lot of the times, you know since I've been in this industry for 7-8 years, even in the beginning of VR, people were very apprehensive about what would be like a mass use application, and people would always be dubious that, oh, okay, this will never be like a something that everyone uses. Like, for example, when computer was first invented, and people initially didn't think, but slowly everyone has a computer. It's kind of a must have now. But for a VR engine or a VR equipment, people are still not fully convinced that it is something that is necessary. But I would try to convince our listeners and viewers today that it is actually a must have, or it will soon become one. You might think that its application is only limited to when you want to experience something, something cool or fun, like riding a roller coaster, or just go into space and that kind of stuff. But think about all the other way virtual simulations can help. I mean, obviously, one of the things you mentioned is flight simulator. So what it is doing, it's training you to become a pilot, right? So the ultimate application is actually training. Now, training could be in many ways. It doesn't have to be just flight simulation. I mean, obviously, that's how that was one of the first usage of
Yeah.
virtual reality. That's because of the 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 other side of training in a real plane, and risk crashing it, and
Yes.
there is a lot of financial
Yeah.
as well as risk to lives. So there was more of a reason. But as VR becomes more and more affordable, and technology makes it more and more user friendly, you will see loads of ways you could train and actually also use it in various businesses. For example, for engineering design, we had a talk earlier about engineering design, where you design
Yes.
3D objects. But imagine going into a virtual world and picking up each of these pieces and creating that engineering solution in as if it's real in the virtual world. That way you can actually see all the things that could go wrong in real life with real life dimensions. So For example, if you're designing a building, or as an architect, you can actually experience the sizes of the room or the corridor or the stairs and how the whole thing fits together. And for example, you're designing a furniture, you can actually see that furniture in virtual world, how the furniture fits with the rest of the environment created virtually. But then that is saving you cost, as well as also you're doing a lot of design before even making a prototype. So the first item you actually physically make will be near perfect because you've actually seen it exactly where it is going to be placed in real life. So there are many business applications like that. One of the one of my customer for whom I designed a solution was for safety training. So for so in railway industry, after
Yes.
working in railway for years and decades, a lot of people
Yes.
have their whole career in railway industry, and then they become complacent about the dangers of various high like heavy equipments and machineries, and becomes un you know unintentionally becomes complacent and ignorant. But one of the solution I built is that they will stand on this virtual reality platform, and then they will see a crane is lifting them up into 100 floors up, and then they will look down and see how real, and then and they're standing on a like a vibrating platform, so they will actually feel. And we'll also give air, fan, with fan, we'll also give the air, simulate the air on very high altitudes, and then suddenly the crane will you know go out of order, and he will
Oh my
drop.
God.
And then that is such a realistic experience that they kind of comes back to reality, that no, they have to be safe before operating heavy equipments like that. They have to, it kinds of dawns onto them that the importance of safety and security in that way. So they're more serious about it. And then another thing could be that they're in virtual reality, and then suddenly a train just passes by inches away from where they're standing, and then they can also I've seen like people have like heartbeats gone faster, and it was a proper real experience for them. And this way they can be more vigilant, less complacent.
I mean,
So yeah.
before you think about other applications, I actually have experienced it in television shows, and I think one recent application because of the pandemic. So, Rolls-Royce, right? They make aircraft engines, and they are very popular in the UK. I mean, they are popular all across the world, and most of the major aircraft manufacturers use Rolls-Royce engines. But because of the pandemic, they didn't have a way to train people, so they shipped, I think, I don't know if they shipped, but they had their employees wear VR glasses, and they provided training. And as you mentioned, they could experience the engine in real form, in actual proportion, and they could now then try to fit something inside it using the tools in the VR platform, and then try to understand how to maintain, how to fix issues with the aircraft engine. And this happened during the pandemic, and I saw a video regarding it. I'll maybe share it when we share the video. And the other application was on BBC. There is a show called Your Homemade Perfect, and exactly as you mentioned, seeing furniture in your house in real proportions, then it actually gives you a good sense of how it will look, how it will fit, whether it's right for the room, whether the color is right, whether the lighting is right, etc. And with this show, what they did is, um, a lot of people, when they try to go buy a house or they replan their existing houses, they spend a lot of money on designs and architecture and everything, but they don't actually understand how it will look until unless it's developed fully. And VR helps here, that it
Yes.
bridges the gap. It creates a virtual world. They can experience it before it's actually even built. they can interact with it, and they can see how it will look, how they will feel inside it, and then they decide whether this design is suitable for their requirements or not. And I think that was quite powerful.
Yes, yes, and another application is interactive gaming. It's a very, very profitable and very big industry nowadays, and you can actually step into a virtual world and have interactive games with other characters in virtual reality. That is also an amazing experience. Another thing is in medical industry. So doctors
Yes.
can be trained on virtual reality, and they will see a virtually created, a human body or that kind of thing. So surgeons can train in for various complex operations. Um, there is also another application for, especially for augmented reality, to cure phobia. For example, I am, very, very much scared of spiders. Using augmented reality, there are ways to, well, I wouldn't say cure, because it seems impossible to me to be cured and not be scared of spiders. But for big insects like that, people who are, so you can actually get mobile phone apps, which are
Yes.
augmented reality apps, and you will use your camera. So you put your hand in front of the in the camera vision, so you see your hand, and then an AR spider will start walking in your hand, and obviously you're looking through the lens of the camera, so it looks very much real to you. And although, even though it's not real, so slowly you become familiar with this idea of having an insect crawling on your body, and come out of the phobia, start being less scared of this kind of scenario. So that's another way of application, AR application, VR application, etc. And even in whole virtual reality, you can actually see, in your body, or be in the same room with a spider. um, so yeah, there are applications like that. And I mean, there is another application which is actually, when we speak about VR and AR, although might be controversial, but we can't just escape that, is also in porn industry. So they are investing massively for a realistic experience, and that is, from a business perspective, financially, that is quite big, because it is a big billion-dollar industry, and they are very interested in being able to simulate experiences in that works in their industry. So that is also a very noticeable, although controversial, noticeable application. Um, yeah.
No, but
So
it's interesting. It's interesting whatever scenarios you have mentioned, because I think, yeah, those are all extremely valuable and important, because training, especially pilots, doctors, engineers, without actually spending too much money on equipment, and when you're able to train them remotely from home on an actual piece that looks and feels the same. It's just not real, it's virtual, but still it makes a huge difference, because when those engineers, doctors and pilots, or anyone for that matter, can experience those objects in real world after getting trained in the virtual world, they may not feel that much different. So it's actually quite good. And
and
then
sorry, another application I just thought of for a regular person, for a regular public, apart from training and all the other things, those are all specialized. But for someone like you and me, just a regular person, how can VR or AR be used? And, it comes even more important now after the pandemic, when we're all working from home. Me and you, we're doing video conferencing right now. But with the advent of AR and VR, we could be in a virtual world, having a lot more realistic experience of talking to each other through the
true.
virtual world. So that could be the next step of video conferencing, how where we put on head-mounted displays, us regular users of technology, and have a full, realistic experience of having a meeting in a conference room, with presentations and everything. So that's a proper, mass use of AR and VR.
That is. I mean, and interesting that you said this because I actually saw a video, and I think there is a company that's experimenting with virtual conference, where people wear head-mounted displays and they create avatars, and then you conduct interviews and you talk to each other as if you're in the same room. And there you have different applications like a whiteboard, like a browser, etc. And then you can play with it and you can show people, okay, this is what you're drawing and this is what it is, and you can see their faces, their reaction. And yeah, I mean, actually happening. And I think the pandemic has actually accelerated the development of such applications. So you mentioned about VR, but then and you mentioned briefly about AR, augmented reality. So what are the applications for augmented reality? I think virtual reality everyone is familiar with because I mean you see a lot of videos, as you mentioned, gaming. We have all been to amusement parks where we have actually sit in a pod that takes us in a very immersive experience. So we have experienced that. But AR is actually something quite new, very recent, and it's picking up. I think with the big game, I think Pokemon or something, it actually picked up and people were searching for that using their phones. So can you talk a bit more about the applications of AR?
Yes, I mean that could be a whole new horizon of application, and that could be more for mass use, for us regular public as well, because that with AR you are not jumping away from the reality. You're just augmenting it, enhancing your real life experience. The first use that comes in mind is the navigation in driving. So, you're driving in your
Yes.
car, obviously nowadays, in the next 5-10 years, it's all going to be electric cars with, a lot more technological advancement. And what if the screen, the glass screen in front of you, had some AR capability? So it would give you navigation right in front of you, and it could give you other information as well. So it not only which road to take to reach your destination, but if you see anything in front of you, like the truck in front of you or the car in front of you, it could check the license and registration and bring up data and things like that. And then imagine you're walking down the road and you're wearing an AR glass, and if you meet someone, and if you suddenly see on in your AR glass a square with their Facebook profile and everything that can be found, matching to that face. It could be there could be many uses, and a lot of them sounds like science fiction, but they're not too far away. And there could be many applications. And also, I've already talked about how it can give you realistic experience of having help with your phobia and that kind of stuff. Even people who have height phobia, they can look at a scenario where they're in a very high altitude, and then you know so yeah, there are many applications for both AR and VR, and they're all interesting. They're all, some of them are like science fiction, but it's not too far away.
It sounds like a scene from a Hollywood film where you look at a person and you get all their profile, especially for people who tend to forget names. It might be very useful. You look at a face, it's familiar, but you can't recall their name. So you wear a glass, okay, hi, hi Rinat, how are you?
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, the navigation bit I think is again quite powerful because I think I was watching one of the videos from CES this year, and I think Philips or some company, they are experimented with augmented reality, working with Google and some other companies to actually enhance the driving experience of not just navigation but speed, obstacles, etc. So suppose if a car is slowing down, suppose there is suddenly an object comes, suppose there is a turn from where a car is coming and it's a blind turn, you can't see it, but it detects, and etc. But I think the underlying principles are generally enhancing your reality. So that's AR.
Yeah.
But when it comes to AR, the challenge would be to use a glass. or a display to always enhance it, right? So you cannot get away with, in at least in VR you have this immersive display concept, but in AR maybe you can't get away with having a display in front of you, be it a smartphone, be it a wearable glass, be it anything else, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because right now the technology is at its very early stage, but I know of a research that's going on who are trying to build contact lenses which will have screens. So you really don't have to wear or carry around a screen, or even your card doesn't have to be fitted with AR capable glass screen. No, you could actually wear a contact lens which will add that AR display and give you all the AR experience that you want, right from in front of your eyeball. So that would be an amazing thing to be able to use if it ever comes to life.
Yeah, I think, wow, I mean, yes, contactless, so it's like smart contacts. So you have all the information in your eyes. But then, I mean, let's talk it out. I mean, what are the technological implications? How would they actually connect to the internet or the data? What would power it?
I
Those
think,
those sorts of things, right?
yeah. The biggest question is the power because it has to be powered. I mean, it could take temperature from the body and use that heat energy, and if it can convert the heat into electricity in one way or another. And then also I would also think that in a human nervous system is also the you know nerves communicate between each other with electrical signals. So is
Yes.
there a way to harvest that, or not even harvest, but is there a way to sync into that so it can be connected with that? So there are many ways. I'm sure people who are actually working on it, they're thinking of innovative
Yeah.
ways to solve these problems. Power is definitely one of the question, and all the equipments that actually needs to be integrated in that lens. It has to have ways to communicate. You know,
Yes. Like a radio antenna or something.
yes, and then ways to generate power, and then the display itself.
Yes.
It might be small, but there will have to be a display for you and me to experience that. So the display would also have to be there. So yeah, there are various technical challenges, but I can't wait, and I really hope that this comes to life.
I really hope so too, because I think it sounds very exciting, especially in a world where technology has already improved our life so much. In our last week's talk, I talked about how technology improved the way we can travel. So similarly, I think with augmented reality, it will enhance it a bit further. So in the future, we won't need anything. I mean, we just need a contact lens, wear it and just go on a holiday, and we can summon, say, Google Assistant or Alexa or Siri, and then we can ask them any questions and get things done. So it's quite an exciting future. But then
Yeah.
I mean, these are just some ways to experience reality, right? I mean, people are exploring voice assistants and other things. Are they also part of this, or augmented and virtual reality are restricted to just the things that you can see? Is technology related to sound, what you hear, also part of augmented reality?
I would passionately challenge that anyone who says that it's only related to vision, because that's not the point. As I said in the beginning of this talk, is reality is what we all perceive with all of our five senses. Vision is one of the important ones. We get the most information through vision, so it is very important, and that is one of the main things that current VR technologies want to cover. But that
Yes.
doesn't have to be the only one. Hearing is very important, and as I also said, that in some of the very sophisticated solutions that I've designed, we also accounted for the smell of what you would experience. If you are going to a specific place that has a specific smell, it can also enhance your overall immersive experience. So yes, all of this. Speaking of accessibility, people with impaired vision or people who probably aren't blind people or deaf people, they have other senses that they can experience that they are experiencing reality through right now, and those senses can be digitally supplied those information for them to experience virtual reality. I've also seen a TED talk which was very interesting, where a person wears a jacket where you could give specific vibration based on things that are happening outside. So, for example, if you do a lecture and people are clapping at the end of your lecture, but if you're blind and you can't really see, or if you're deaf, you can't hear, but if you're wearing this jacket, it will vibrate in a way that you would understand, and your brain very quickly starts linking it. So if the vibration patterns are always the same for the same kind of event, your brain very quickly understands which pattern means what, and that way people of different abilities can experience all kinds of things that are happening around them. So yeah, there are many ways to simulate virtual reality, not just with vision, but with many other.
Many of the senses, incredible. I mean, yes, I mean, you normally, when you think about these applications, especially when you watch YouTube or television and even movies, you only see applications where it's normal people. But I mean, I think for normal people it does enhance, but imagine for disabled people it enhances even up to a greater extent. And I think that's where the real applications are, because for people who have such disabilities to experience the reality that we all experience as normal people, I think that's a great leveler, because they can now experience the reality in the same way as normal people do. So yeah, that's quite powerful. And yeah, I hope that all this comes into reality, and some of it already is, as you mentioned, but even more. So now let's go a bit more into like VR or AR. So suppose a person now wants to experience VR for himself or herself. What do they do currently? I mean, do they go buy a device? What kind of device they should buy? Do you have any ideas? What are the devices in the market? And should they actually invest in such a product? And even for AR, what should they do?
That is a very good topic to cover, actually, and I have had the opportunity to experience many of these devices, like Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, Google Cardboard. I have a few of them at home as well. So yeah, definitely, I would urge, not just encourage, but I would urge listeners and viewers to, uh, make make an effort to get one of these equipments. There are many of these devices, as you mentioned. To name a few: Oculus Rift, Google Cardboard, and then HTC Vive. There are quite a few up. If you Google VR headsets, there will be many that comes in. But one of the most affordable one, yet very much usable, is Google Cardboard. Google just completely changed the game by bringing on Google Cardboard, because before that, a VR equipment or device was very expensive, and it's this sophisticated thing that will give you this experience. But Google, or someone at Google, rightly so, realized that it's nothing but changing your vision and hearing to and giving digital information, and then you already have a screen, which is your mobile phone, and it could generate the two different screens your individual eyes experience. And if it is enclosed in a box and looked through a specific lens, then it would change the viewing angle in such a way that it would be as if you are seeing those screens. And obviously from mobile phone you have the audio coming out as well. So you could have a fully immersive audio visual experience in virtual world using your phone as the sophisticated computing engine, and then just enclose it with a cardboard equipped with two specific lens, which does the the change, which is enough to make the phone screen into a virtual reality screen. So that is very cheap. You could probably buy a Google Cardboard headset nowadays. Stemming from this idea, nowadays there is proper plastic um, headset with with these lenses equipped or designed for your to be used with your phone. So they're still called Google Cardboard, even though they're not made of cardboard anymore. You could go to Google Cardboard and actually make a headset out of cardboard. That's why they named it Google Cardboard.
Okay.
But you can also go on Amazon and buy it with £10 or $10, and get one of these devices where you put your phone in and experience VR straight away. So yes, it's very affordable, Google Cardboard. I would very much encourage the listeners and viewers to try this on if you're on a budget. However, if you can spend a little bit more money, Samsung, for example, they have brought in a more sophisticated version to be used with Samsung phones, but it has a bit of electronics inside it, so it's a little bit more enhanced than Google Cardboard. That would probably cost you about $40 to $80 or pounds. And then there are standalone devices that generates VR solutions on its own without the need for a phone to be added to it, like HTC Vive or Oculus Rift. With these, you just wear the headset and everything is inside it. You connect to the internet and through its connection protocols, and you experience VR with it. So yeah, depending on your budget, obviously, with these standalone things, there are further benefits. They're designed for VR experience, whereas your mobile phone isn't. So you get more out of those experiences. But if you are on a budget, Google Cardboard is no less of an experience. Definitely worth exploring.
Interesting. I mean, Google Cardboard, I mean, I've read about it, but I never actually thought it would be this useful. So I might actually not want to try it because it sounds amazing. And if there is content available, and are there actually content available to experience Google VR?
Oh yes, very much so. There are many VR content available. There are VR web browsers as well.
Okay.
And you can actually do everything that you do in your phone or on the internet in the computer in a VR environment. So Oculus Rift was an individual company to start with, a startup, but then was purchased by Facebook. So
Yes.
now if you have a Facebook account and if you have a Google Cardboard and you open an account, your Facebook account can be used as an Oculus Rift account, and then you enter, and you don't even need to open new accounts. You can just your phone, everything that you see in your phone will become virtual reality content. And if you go on YouTube and just search for VR or 360 degree content, you will find many of them, and there are many 360 images, 360 videos for you to experience. And then there is 360 or VR apps. You can download heaps and heaps of VR or AR apps in App Store or Google Play, and some of them are very interactive, very realistic, and some of them are like very educational. You learn various things, like flight simulator and that kind of stuff. You can experience all of these stuff. Furthermore, speaking of App Store, it's also actually not too difficult to create 360 apps. So Unity is one of the leading mobile gaming, so mobile gaming app creator, and I know I'm sure there are very easy way of in other platforms to create 3D VR apps as well, but this one I know of. In Unity, if you create a world, a video gaming world, and then with like 2 or 3 clicks, you can make that whole world uh, a VR world. So it will display it will make the app as a VR app. So it will work with Google Cardboard or any other head-mounted display devices. All of these apps works with HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, or Google Cardboard. All of them. So it's actually really good. There is many content, many apps, many softwares already out there, and if you want to build one, it's also quite easy. In Unity, the platform that I know about, you build a video game, and you can with 2 clicks you can make it VR friendly. Furthermore, there are GoPro and Ricoh, these sort of imaging companies. They also brought out 360-degree cameras. I have one from Ricoh, a 360 camera. So you can record in 360, so the whole surrounding of you of the camera, and then you can upload it in YouTube. I have uploaded a few videos in YouTube as well, which are recorded in 360. So and then you can experience it in VR. So it would be like you are watching that, you are in that video in real life, in VR world you will be. So there, everything is available. If you want to create audio or visual content, if you want to create VR apps, AR apps, it's very straightforward and accessible. And if you want to consume content, YouTube, starting from YouTube to anywhere, if you just search for 360 images, 360 videos, 360 or VR apps, there will be many of them. So definitely I would encourage everyone to experience this.
Thank you so much, Rinat. I think that was quite a comprehensive list. But that covers just VR. What about AR? I mean, can we experience AR through these devices, or do we need separate devices now for AR?
So that's very interesting. For AR, you obviously have to have an input of real life. So that can be achieved in two of many ways. One is you have a camera which is placed outside of the VR headset. The camera sees the real world, and
Okay.
you see in it brings out in your screen what you see, the real world as well as the digital artifacts or digital items and it combines both of them together. Or like Google Lens, that Google Glass, sorry, not Google Lens. In Google Glass, what you see the real world as you see it with your eyes, and it adds the digital parts into your vision. So these are the two ways. One is even the real world, you see it through a camera and then mixed with other digital items, or you see the real world with your eyes as it is, and you add the digital overlay on top of it.
Yeah.
So with Google Cardboard, the way it's designed, it has to be fully, it has to block out all the lights from outside for it to be a realistic VR experience. So it can't have, you can't be looking at the real world with your own eyes. The only way you could experience AR in, Google Cardboard or, any of these other head-mounted displays is if there are external cameras which are looking at the real world and then combining both of these together. So yes, there are AR, you can experience AR, but then you have to buy those dedicated devices which has cameras outside.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. So you have, yeah, these applications and devices which are actually quite useful, and I think Google Cardboard, it sounds very interesting and it sounds very cheap as well. So I think that's something which anyone can get access to, because these other devices which I wanted to ask you more about is because when you were explaining about Google Cardboard, the immediate thought in my head was, okay, I can see something, but I can't interact with it. So if I want to interact with something, do these other devices actually provide me like a controller or something that I can use and interact with? Say the games that you talked about, VR games, or say flight simulators. I want to play, or I want to use it. I want to interact with the elements in the virtual world. So in a cardboard VR, it's just a cardboard box. I watch some videos, so it's more immersive displays. But
So,
can I actually interact with it?
so it's an interesting question. So if you have to think about interaction in this way, so it so when you think about interact, so when you move, then you want the scene to understand that you're moving. Now, this can actually be achieved quite easily, and even in Google Cardboard as well, because you're using your phone. The phone has an accelerometer. Has phone can sense how the phone is being moved. If you rotate it, it knows. That's how we use Google Maps and even Google Earth and Google Sky. Or many other apps where accelerometer is used to know how the phone movement is happening. So even in Google Cardboard, when when you are inside virtual world, when you're moving your head, the phone is also moving. So it can interact in that way. It can understand how you moved your head, so it will change the display based on that. So that is one way of interaction. And if you walk, it can sense that you have gone from place A to place B, and that's how your scenario around you will change. So that's one way of interaction. Now, if you think about interaction, there could be many ways of interaction. For the Oculus Rift or HTC Vive or Google Cardboard, it can know where your head is. But if you sit in one place and move your hand, there is no way for those devices to know that information. So
Yes.
if they don't know the whereabout your hands or your fingers, then how would they interact based on it? So now, so to eliminate that, to solve this problem, there are actual sensors that you can attach. You can wear gloves, which will sync with your phone or with Oculus Rift or HTC or with these devices, which will be able to sense, track your finger movement, hand movement, leg movement. So that would mean that if you are dancing wearing a head-mounted display, it will know everything that you have done and will be able to record it. Dancing, or playing realistic video games where you are, in a sort of in a combat scenario where you're, shooting someone, you're doing gorilla jumps and all of that, exciting, cool stuff you can do in realistic video gaming experience, and it will know all of your movement and change your scenario based on that. So that is possible, but for that you need to give it information. If you want it to know how your hands are moving, you need to give it that information by wearing a gloves, or it doesn't even have to be gloves. So you can just wear like sensors in each of your fingertips, which will connect to the central server. And
Fascinating, fascinating stuff. I never actually thought of interaction in that way. I mean, yes, you're right. When we are actually viewing the device with our eyes and moving our head and walking around, there is a kind of interaction, and the environment is changing, the video is changing. So yeah, I mean, interesting. I never thought about it in that perspective. So I mean, now we have these devices, and they can be powered. They can be powered with a battery on the smartphone or with some external power, and they are also connected to the internet. But when it comes to connecting to the internet, there involves certain security risks, privacy risks. People can hack into these devices because they are now connected to the internet. So are there any security risk? I mean, you worked on devices, building it for different clients. So was security an aspect which you thought about while creating these devices?
So whenever you're communicating, there is a security risk. And especially if you're communicating digitally, there is more of a security risk because, data packets are being transferred and it can be intercepted, or someone can sort of do the identity theft and pose as you, whatever. So there is always security risk with any technology. It is something that definitely needs to be taken into account. That's why when you start with Google Cardboard or any of the head-mounted display, you have to open an account with password, etc. These are, some of the basic things that you need to start. Um, in terms of when you're consuming content, you're consuming publicly available content, so there is not much there. But it's still important to always be vigilant and be aware of not giving out your personal details to dodgy apps or unknown sources or unreliable sources. So yeah, there are ways that you could lose your information, even if you're private 3D content, private immersive content. You wanna keep them in your secure place, which are password protected, etc. So yeah, I mean, whenever there is anything digital communication, there is when I say communication, it doesn't have to be communication between two people. Whenever two devices are talking to each other, there is
Security risk.
yeah. So it's nothing you know s- different from any you don't like you have to be vigilant and aware just like you would be in any internet or any IT related products. So yeah.
Sure, makes sense. So I think that's it from my side. Do you want to add anything more in the end?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot. I
Yes.
mean, as I did throughout this talk, I would very much encourage the listeners and viewers to make make that effort. Google Cardboard and similar, design are available for on low budget and can be used with your phone. Definitely try this. And one thought is that all the apps in Google Play Store and App Store that we use right now, these are App Store and Google Play Store have been around for I don't know 15 to 18 years nowadays, and all the apps we see are have evolved, have improved, and now they're the best version they can be. But VR apps or AR apps didn't have all this time, to grow and evolve. So there is still a lot of room for improvement. There are many apps already there, but if you are thinking of what could be the next big idea or next amazing app or next Facebook, next Zoom, AR and VR world or this whole industry is still at its infancy. There is a lot of room for improvement. So if you're looking for that groundbreaking idea or a place where you can really make a big difference or come up with something really amazing, this is the place. Invest some time and effort, and if you have a really cool idea, definitely go for it because there is a lot of it will the adaptation of VR and AR will increase, and it will definitely increase day by day. And if you can come up with the next Zoom or next immersive video conferencing solution or the next immersive mobile app, the next immersive video game, that will take you places. So definitely a place to put your effort in.
Well, I'm sure I think viewers are quite pumped up and excited with listening to your talk today because I sure am quite excited about this new reality, and I want to experience it as soon as possible. And I will quickly Google and see if I can order a Google Cardboard VR or if I can make one, as you mentioned. But thank you so much again, Renat, for this wonderful talk. It is a quite a relevant topic, and it is quite quite a new industry as well. As you mentioned, the apps are still very new. There are still a lot of applications that needs to be explored. And yes, as you have urged the viewers already or the listeners, that please go and create content for these apps, create those apps, consume those content, and just experience virtual reality. And thank you so much again for joining us today on this Tech Talk with Amit and Rinat. If you have been enjoying our conversations about different tech topics, please share, comment, and like to let us know how you feel about our talks. Uh, Today is our 10th episode. I just wanted to let you know. So we started this journey 10 weeks ago, and so far we have covered different topics. We have invited one guest as well, and we hope to keep inviting few more guests in the future, and then cover more relevant topics that impacts all our lives. So thank you so much again for listening today, and see you next time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, guys. See you next time.